Hey Melanated family, I want to talk about black community cohesion. It's something we don't currently have because we haven't fought in that way in this country. We've been naive enough to pin the hopes and dreams of our emancipation on our oppressors. There is no cat that will ever free any mouse when he is hungry. A mouse is a resource, and we are a resource. On the one hand, we're a great resource in that when the Windrush generation were invited over, there were depleted ranks of men. And if you watch a documentary called Coffee Coloured Nation, you heard a man say, just because you have people erect a shed in your back garden, doesn't mean you want them to move in. If you want to understand the psyche of the true Englishman, the same Englishman that voted out, the same Englishman you're relying on to move you forward and help you after you've seen African Americans come from 8 years of relying on a black president, that is the true psyche. The same way you see a fly in your bathroom and you don't know what's going on, it's summer and there's another fly and there's fruit flies, you kill them because you don't desire to share a space with them. So there's a mindset that you have. They're not supposed to be in your place. Now, we similarly can't say that we're going back to the West Indies or Africa, because there we're suppressed. Because you can create any narrative here, as we saw with Iraq, as we saw with Afghanistan, and create false flag wars and end up in the country. And then we've got their foot on our neck. So what we need to do here is organize, and we have no choice about that. Now, I didn't write this, I didn't come up with this. Dr. Claude Anderson put down a blueprint for us called Powernomics. It runs from education, through business, through the justice system, through politics, and it ties them all together cohesively. But there is a starting place. There's always a starting place. So understand the way that any community functions. It functions from a strong 5 to 10% who are economically in charge. They create wealth. Businesses create wealth. Businesses create jobs. Businesses are taxable income. Businesses create a surplus which they buy with. So whether you are providing a service or goods, you have purchasing power. Businesses and our businesses need to start pooling our resources on an organizational level. We need to work with bodies in every single area where we need these solutions. The areas, media, we need to control our image. We need to control our representation. Every single community, every single culture has a duty to preserve, uphold, and promote who they are. Everybody celebrates Chinese New Year because they uniquely understand, promote, preserve, and uphold their culture. We don't. There's something about us that makes us scared to be black in public. And that is another thing that we need to start doing. We need a code of conduct amongst ourselves. We don't need to talk to everybody about what we're doing. And as a people, we're very vocal. And we speak to our oppressors about everything we do, so they're a step ahead. There used to be a show called Tomorrow's World where they tell you about police technology. They cut that. Now everything is a surprise to you, and you're going to find out the hard way. They need to find out when we execute what we have been doing behind the scenes. The first of these areas is education. Because you don't control your children's education, unfortunately, your children don't receive an education. Now, I've had businesses since I was 18 years old, and I have bought supplies from a lot of different people. And I had this conversation with a Jewish man who was 70 at the time. He just celebrated his 70th birthday. And he turned around and he said, oh, but education is this and education is that and blah, blah, blah. I said, that's because you received an education. You received an education from your people within your interests that furthered their interests. I received an indoctrination. My people receive an indoctrination. And indoctrination doesn't work for you. It works for somebody else. So become a unit in a cog which doesn't serve you, which will lead you possibly to have a fulfilled career, possibly not. But in the beginning, you're definitely going to have more month than money. And as your lifestyle grows with your career and your family, you're probably going to stay on that treadmill of having more month than money, which is where credit comes in. And then credit kind of commands that you stay in the position you're in. So you are taught something that doesn't serve you. We are taught from a Eurocentric perspective what doesn't serve our children. So if we're constantly countering what they're being taught at school, at some point they're going to experience cognitive dissonance, because a teacher said this, now you say that. They're going to fight you. There is no need to have a fight within our own homes. So the first point we need to take control of is our children's education. For some it's homeschooling, but when you're talking about the wider execution, it's not feasible for everybody to homeschool. And to be fair, every single borough receives funds in our name which are allocated to us. So understanding that we are betraying our children by not giving them a true education and sense of who they are and what they're capable of. What do? Every single area that I'm going to talk to you about as a focal organisation at the forefront. So for education, the Black Child Agenda, led by Cheryl Phoenix, does all of this work. They advocate for children in schools. So if you're an educator, if you work in local authority and you have a clue about what is going on with education and you are black, you are obligated to cooperate with the advancement of these programs, because they advocate for you, for your children directly. So no matter what position you're in, you're still going to be facing your battles within schools with your own children. So the Black Child Agenda, I would recommend, would be one of the first campaigns for us to get behind en masse. Because all the areas that I'm going to talk about, from education, through media, through the justice system, through politics, to economics, start with education. Education is the first, is the foremost, because it imprints on your child who they're going to be for the first quarter of their life. How confident they may be, how functional they may be. So the Black Child Agenda is the first campaign that I would recommend that we all get on behind en masse. So there's a reason that I recommended education first, because it starts with the children. So after you've realized the control of your own education, you move to the media, the control of your images. I want us to be thinking about, first and foremost, the things that we can control right now as a community. So when I mention the Black Child Agenda, we can contribute to every single thing they're doing right now. So from local authority through to educators, youth workers, social workers, to be informing what they should be doing and how you can help. Most importantly, have a plan. Don't attack them with questions, attack them to provide. The second phase and tier that we need to attack and take control of is our image, the media. The reason that I talk about all of these areas is because our oppression is based on more than one thing. White supremacy doesn't just come from police attacks, the judicial system. It's a five-pronged approach in this attack. It's economic, it's educational, it is political, and it is the justice system, where we receive disproportionately harsher sentences. There's an entire justice business based around our people. So it starts with the image that is presented of us. Fear is perceived when people see black men. I've worn a £700 suit and had £1,500 in my pocket, in my money clip, and seen a white woman who I know has got credit card debt in her purse, clench her purse because I'm walking past her. That's crazy. She's supposed to look at me and say hi. That is based on the fact that we're not countering the images that are being put out about us. So I'm now talking to media makers on the next tier. In terms of us holding ideas and fighting and saying, I don't want you to steal this, it's time to collaborate and share, because we're going to create mass media entities that are powerful and informative and enrich us. That is the next phase. We don't have Sky, we don't have Bloomberg, we don't have News Corp, we don't own news gathering agencies. So we need to create something right now which is mass media and covers various continents with correspondence. That is an action that needs to be executed. Now, I don't speak about all of these things in theoretical terms. Behind the scenes, they are happening and they are going on. Who I am calling are media makers, not with questions, but with solutions to bring to the table and add to the mix. It's very important that we control our image, because anybody else that speaks about us needs to be answered straight away. They need to be countered straight away, and they need to be educated. What we provide with the images that we create are an education for the masses. Now, the same way that they look at us when they say, if they miss us, they get our children. We have the opportunity to do. Black culture is the prevalent culture. We have their children, make no mistake. When you see children with their eyes closed on the bus, bopping, listening to music, or on the tube, or on the road, they are listening to us. White boys and girls, Asian boys and girls, and everybody else listens to us. We are the pop culture. Now we need to make that across the board. So politically, in terms of the view of us, we need to inform their children, but we are informing our people and bringing our people to one position. When you have times of polling, we're all over the place and we're having different conversations. We are not individuals. It is a fallacy, because we're experiencing the same thing across this country, across the globe. It's exactly the same. The oppression stories are the same. Our children are being suspended at a much higher rate. They're going into special education at a much higher rate. They're being expelled at a much higher rate, and they're being criminalized at a much higher rate. So we don't have the luxury of intellectual masturbation. So the first thing we need to do is control our images, so that one, our children are informed by the successes that we're having every day, because those stories aren't being told. And secondly, the businesses and the individuals who are operators are aware